Hello everybody, and welcome back to a brand new video of the Global Awareness Report. Sorry that this video is late. It's hard for me to keep up with the every Friday sort of thing, but you know what matters is that we're getting them out there. Better late than never, as they say. So we are going to pretty much only focus on the war in Ukraine, or the Russian special military operation, whatever you prefer to call it, because there is very little geopolitical updates aside from America hitting China with sanctions on chips like processors and electronic devices and stuff like that, but that's not a super big deal worth going into. That sort of stuff happens. So we are going to start off in the Kherson region, which is a part of the Russian Federation, the Kherson Oblast, as it's called. And as we can see right here, the Russian forces have retreated from the northeastern part of Kherson over the Dnipro, and all of these villages have been recaptured by Ukrainian forces. All of this happened between the 2nd, 3rd, and the 2nd to the 4th of October. So this was a major withdrawal of Russian forces and a major setback for Russia, as all of this stuff is a part of the Kherson Oblast, which Russia sees as a part of its territory now. So if Russia wants to legitimize the annexation of these regions in Ukraine, that they need to have control over the entirety of the Oblast. So this is a major setback for Russia. In regards to this area right here, no one really knows who's in control of what. It would appear that Ukraine has captured these towns, although there are some Ukrainian sources saying that these towns are still under Russian control. There's some Russian sources saying that the Russians are still in the southern part of Donetsk. There are also sources saying that the Russians have retreated to this sort of front line right here, so this area is unknown. It's sort of a gray zone, a no man's land as far as I can tell, but I am going to leave it as some kind of mixed zone. It's really hard to tell what's going on here, so we're going to move on from the Kherson front. So this was just like Kharkiv, what happened in Kharkiv, but on a much smaller scale. Russian forces not having enough manpower to guard the front line and having to retreat to a smaller, more easily defendable position. But they are holding the front line as of now. In regards to this, I am unsure who controls this sort of area right here, so I've left it blank. I'm not entirely sure if anyone actually controls this. A lot of this stuff is no man's land, so the Kherson front is just farmland after farmland, so it's hard to really occupy that and put troops along these positions. You really just need to put troops in the towns and hold the towns, and so that's why Russia retreated to this position, because you can see a line of settlements. So we are going to move on from the Kherson front. This is a major Ukrainian victory, and this threatens the entirety of the Russian bridgehead over the Dnipro River. But Russia has sent reinforcements to the area, and they appear to be holding the line for now. We will see what happens in the future. Zaporizhzhia or Zaporizhzhia, as it's spelt and pronounced in Russian. Nothing is going on here at the moment, but there are rumors and reports of a big Ukrainian buildup around Kharkiv and around this area, and a possible push towards Melitopol, and to maybe even cut off and split Zaporizhzhia in two and retake the de facto capital of the oblast, which is right here. This is the Russian administrative capital for their part of Zaporizhzhia. So there are rumors that Ukraine could push all the way down there and retake it, and that is what they are planning to do in the coming weeks. We will have to see if these rumors materialize, but another thing about Kherson that I just remembered is the possibility of a naval invasion, of a river crossing towards the other side of the Dnieper. That is also a possibility to keep in mind. We are going to move over towards Donetsk. Russian forces have actually managed to push along Piske and to capture some of Povryansk, as well as just trying to push and get the Ukrainians as far away from Donetsk as possible. But it is a very slow and static, a near static front, and so there's a lot of battle happening, but not a lot of advancing. We are going to move north towards the Bakhmut front, where Russian forces have actually captured some settlements, including Zaitseve, Vesla Dolina, and Ordarivka. And so they are in the south of Bakhmut. They are approaching on the outskirts of Bakhmut, and they already have a small portion of the city here, the eastern outskirts. So Russia can now advance directly onto the city itself, and so Bakhmut is now in a precarious situation. When it comes to Solidar, the battle here has stagnated. It's a stagnant battle. There is fighting, but again, not a lot of advancing. The Donetsk and Luhansk fronts is very stagnant. Not a whole lot happening on these fronts here, aside from slow advances, but they are Russian advances nonetheless. Moving over to the northern Luhansk front, Russian forces have recaptured Dubrova, and they have also managed to stabilize the front line sort of in northern Luhansk. And as well on the, I believe it was the 1st of October, Liman fell to Ukrainian forces, as well as, and through the 2nd, so did Torsk, and these settlements right here fell to Ukrainian forces, and the Russians withdrew back to the Liman, or the Luhansk border. They withdrew from Liman to the Luhansk administrative borders. And Ukrainian forces have been recapturing these settlements and towns, and have captured this string of settlements here from the 8th to the 10th, and they have, which is inside the Luhansk administrative district. So they are pushing in the north of Luhansk. They've also captured these towns right here. This was on the 2nd. So they are pushing into Luhansk. This area right here is a no man's land, I'm fairly certain. No one controls this or occupies this at the moment. So that is all for our frontline updates. So because of this, because of the Kharkiv breakthrough and because of this now new Kherson breakthrough, Russia has appointed a new commander for the special military operation, Sergei Surovienkin. He's the commander for all Russian forces involved within the war in Ukraine, the special military operation. And when that happened, a day later, massive, large-scale missile strikes all across Ukraine targeting infrastructure such as military, communication, command and control, and energy systems, i.e. Power plants and the like. And because of this, there have been mass blackouts all over Ukraine, including in Sumy, Kharkiv, Poltava, Dnipro, Zhytomyr, Sarotomir, Kamiskelke, Ternopil, and Lviv. So all over Ukraine there were missile strikes, and all over Ukraine there were blackouts and water disruptions. And on the 8th, and this was a response, most likely, that on the 8th, was most likely a Ukrainian attack on the Crimean bridge. So you see this bridge right here. It travels from the Russian mainland to Crimea. It was attacked, not yesterday, but on the 8th it was attacked. And it is most likely Ukrainian, because from the footage it would appear that a truck carrying some kind of explosive or something happened. We're not sure, but something happened, and there's a train passing a truck. So it's a railway and a road bridge, and so a truck exploded, which caused the train to explode, and the oil and gas it was carrying, that train, also ignited and melted parts of the tracks in the bridge. And so this, I believe it was around the northern half right over here. This area, parts of this area is no longer operational, but repairs are underway. Almost immediately repairs began. So the bridge is being repaired, and it would appear that within a few more days, the bridge most likely will be fully operational again. I believe traffic along the bridge has been reopened somewhat, and there are ferries. There are ferries from Russia to Crimea instead of traffic on the bridge now, so they have reopened ferry routes. So many people have speculated that the missile strike was in response to this attack on the bridge. It is impossible to know that. Perhaps they were planning this missile strike beforehand, and then the attack on the bridge happened. Maybe it was a coincidence, maybe not. It is impossible to know. But if it is not a response to the attack on the bridge, and that this is a new phase of the war that Russia is entering, where they are going to be using missile strikes and airstrikes more often on targets like power plants and whatnot, military and civilian infrastructure, then it would be very devastating to Ukraine. And Ukraine would have trouble being able to properly command their forces. Obviously, without electricity, it is very difficult to run a modern war. So we will have to wait and see if another attack of this scale happens on Ukraine, or if this was a one-off, one-time response to the attack on the bridge. And we are going to move over to Belarus because there are reports that Belarus is moving tanks to the border of Ukraine, and that there are also reports that Belarus is sending tanks to Russia, giving them tanks, and giving them tanks to use in the war in Ukraine. And there are also reports that Russian forces have entered Belarus, I think. There are rumors of that happening. A few days ago, maybe more like a week ago, the president of Belarus, Lukashenko, gave a speech saying how there were allegedly NATO saboteurs and special forces threatening Belarus, that they were going to use Ukraine to attack Belarus, that NATO was going to use special forces to attack Belarus from Ukraine. He provided zero evidence for this, but this could be a casus belli, a justification for Belarus to enter in the special military operation to join the war against Ukraine, and for the northern front to be reopened, this time with Belarusian soldiers involved in the fighting. He also said in that same speech that Belarus had the ability to mobilize 130,000 soldiers, which is a lot. Combine that with the 300,000 soldiers Russia is mobilizing. 430,000 extra soldiers is a lot, and that is enough to change the war and to tip the balance into Russia's favor again. As well as on the 10th, Vladimir Putin met with the Russian Security Council, and that the man reporting this said that the strikes that had been going on since the early hours of the day when this was posted to Telegram had prepared the ground for the meeting. So maybe they were talking about Belarus's entry into the war, and on the strikes, and on the new commander that had been appointed. That's most likely what they were talking about. So I believe that Phase 3 of the war is upon us, that we're about to see a new phase of the war, one where Russia may reignite the northern front, where Russia may continue to use these missiles on these electrical stations and power plants, as well as it is getting colder. Over Ukraine and over the northern hemisphere, it's starting to get cold. We're entering autumn, and soon we're going to be entering winter. So without electricity, without heating, the people of Ukraine will suffer, and so they will plead with their government to end the war, so that they can get heating back, so that the missile strikes will stop. This is a possibility that you have to consider. This may be the Russians' plan. The plan may be something else. We don't know, but that is what many people are suggesting, many analysts are saying might happen. So we are going to move to Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. People get very upset when you say Kyiv or Kiev, so I'm just gonna say Kiev, so that way hopefully no one gets upset. But anyways, this was the one right here. The U.S. Embassy is urging Americans to leave Ukraine immediately. So in response to the missile strikes, the United States' embassy in Ukraine has told the American population living in Ukraine, all American citizens living in Ukraine, to leave the country immediately. You know, this is what they said before the war began, and you know, around February 20th, I believe, the U.S. embassy, you know, shut down operations. But they're not going to be shutting down operations. They are urging citizens to leave. And it's and there are also rumors, but no confirmation that that embassies of European Union countries have received an urgent evacuation order from Kiev, from the capital. This is unconfirmed, though. As well as the Red Cross has announced it will be suspending operations in Ukraine, but that they expect to continue operations soon again. But so there are reports of that all going on right there. So this is a big news day for the war in Ukraine. So it is impossible to know what will happen, but something big is going to happen, I believe. I believe that we are about to witness the next phase of the war, one where Russia is more willing to use its full potential, more of its military capacity against Ukraine, where it will mobilize reservists, it will call in Belarus to the war, it will, you know, not shy away from targeting power supplies and water supplies and stuff like that. So where we might see a Russian attack, I think might be around Donetsk. They might want to try to take more of Donetsk. We're going to see the Russians obviously send reinforcements to Luhansk and try to take back some of the towns here. I think the goal now for the Russians here is to capture and hold all of Luhansk, the administrative borders of Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson. I think that is the goal, and then they will try to seek peace with Ukraine. Because Russia doesn't have the capability to take all of Kharkiv Oblast. They don't have the capability to take Sumy or Chernihiv, nor would they want to, because these places don't have a whole lot of Russians in them. They're not very pro-Russian. So I think we might see an attack from the north just to, you know, threaten the capital of Ukraine, and in order to draw forces from the front back to this northern area so that, you know, Russian forces will have an easier time taking their new oblasts, taking the full administrative borders of their new oblasts, and, you know, what they see as their new oblasts. So I doubt that the goal, if they do decide to attack a new northern front, I doubt the goal will be to actually take the city of Kiev itself, but I doubt the Russians have the capability of doing that. They couldn't do it the first time around, so what would make them be able to do it the second time around? We will have to wait and see. So I think that we are going to wrap up the video right here. Sorry for the sort of lack of analysis here, but it is very hard to know what's going to happen next. Ukraine's massive victory in Kharkiv and now their massive victory down here in Kherson is unexpected. It's hard to say what will happen next. It's really difficult to say. Next thing you know, Metropol may fall. Next thing you know, the Russians will, maybe capture all of Sumy Oblast in a day. Obviously all this stuff is very unlikely, but I thought the same of. I'm pretty sure we all thought the same of Kharkiv being fully recaptured by Ukraine within a few days, within a week or so. But that was very unlikely to happen, and yet it did happen. So, you can never. I try to try to get away from predicting things because it's almost impossible to get a prediction right for anybody. But I think that's going to be it. This was less of a geopolitical analysis and more of a Ukrainian war update. Hopefully next time we get some more interesting geopolitical news to talk about. But thank you for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.